Hey, Dean. I just thought I'd go ahead and hit the button and we'd see what happens. And so far, nothing. So perhaps. There I am. So perhaps. There I am. Hey, Brenda. Let me turn that off because that's going to start echoing. And I'm the only one in here talking, so. Good, Dean. I wasn't sure for a minute. It took it longer than I clicked on a couple minutes early. But good evening, Lori Jean from California. That's always a pleasant surprise. Oh, you're watching the time machine. So are you really sure you're here now, or could you possibly be here at a later date? Sorry, sorry, guys. My nose. It's that time of year. My nose is running just about constantly. Carol, are you home now? Or are you still in your car? If you're home, Teddy might say hi. Hey, you want to say hi to Carol? You want to say hi to Carol? You're 20 years into the future. Is that because you think I look older, or? She's watching the original Time Machine, too, just for the record. Come here. Come up here a minute. No. Squeaky. Wait. Say hi to Carol. She wants to say hi to you. Why do you have to be so non-social sometimes, huh? Why don't you say hi? Why don't you look at the camera? Show everybody your pretty eyes. And get your claws out of my skin. Well, my goodness, there's Garrett from California also. Carol said, hi, Super Teddy. She must think you're special. She's never had your claws in her shoulder. Oh, your all-time favorite movie. Yeah, I know. I think you just like to see those Morlock people eating people or something. So how's Garrett today? I just made my version of a Scottish mule. No. Excuse me, it's a Welsh mule. Yes, they're special claws, Dean. You're right about that. They're extra sharp's what they are. He's such a brat about uh, not letting me clip them. And right now they're sinking deep into sinking deep into my flesh. Garrett is good even when he's not good. Well, I'm going to assume that's Garrett talking in the third person because I see no signs, visible signs that tell me that it might be Michelle. I'm wearing my custom made just for me apron that I purchased through Well, actually, it's my sponsor supplied me with this apron, Sunny Windows Creations. With special embroidered, logos and patches or whatever you want to call them, including this one, which is on the waist pocket. You too can order one of these from Sunny Windows Creations. She has an Etsy shop. I should get that address. Brenda, you know her address. Won't you can post her Etsy address for me? Hey, John. Well, you know what, John? I don't go on late a lot, but you're right. Carol, you spoiled it. You gave it away. Yes. My sponsor is my wife. She does make amazing aprons. She really does. And this is just another example. And anyway, John, yeah, but you're right. I'm usually up till 12 or 1 and sometimes 2 way up more often than I should be. Sometimes I fall asleep, sometimes I don't. And then sometimes I wake up at 4 a.m. and I find Garrett online still, which is, I realize, only 1 a.m. his time, but he's still out there, and it's amazing sometimes who all's in there with him. Let me see. I think I'm out of coffee yet. One more sip. All right, coffee gone. Oh, me too, John. I've got it on in the background. I had to shush it so you guys wouldn't hear it over the. And my team's already behind by 1. I watched New York kind of pound on Pittsburgh a little while ago. I don't know who you might be pulling for since the Devils aren't the jersey's not in it right now, but okay. What's amazing, Garrett? I have to know. Thank you, Dean. Is it legal? Is it fair if I hit my own like button? You're pulling for the Warriors. Wrong game, Garrett. Wrong game. He said he was watching hockey, not basketball. Atlantic City. Oh, Vegas, now Atlantic City. I hope you've got some money left over. Oh, I did? I don't know what I said amazing about. Watch hockey. It's a good game. Anyone but the Rangers. Oh, well, excuse me. The game with the stick and yes, that's it, Dean. That's it, Garrett. They bring their own clubs with them. It probably don't make sense, Dean, but somebody's got to hit it. I'm not. I'm not really. I don't know who I'm rooting for in most of those games right now, John. I mean, other than Nashville, right now I don't have any favorites. I'll have to when they fall out, and they probably will. Unfortunately, I'll have to, pick somebody else to root for. But I know that Mickey's Magic Meg, and I know I got her name wrong. but Megan is a big Rangers fan. Oh, I didn't see that. Whatever you said. Yeah, Colorado's beating them right now, and they beat them bad the other night. I hope tonight's not like that. That's all. And they're starting their least experienced goalie right now too, John. Their main guy got hurt the other night, so he's out. Oh well, yeah. Oh, and Jersey Mike. Okay. I don't know if I remembered he was or not, but I know I thought for a long time that Megan pulled for the Islanders, so I would congratulate her when the Islanders won or did something. Then I realized I had that all wrong. She's not an Islanders fan at all. Okay, Garrett. Now that you put me on the clock, he's got 52 minutes because he has a meeting. Well, if you saw my thumbnail, that I was going to talk about change, and it's kind of funny. Kind of odd funny. I don't know if it's a ha-ha funny or not, but that I would talk about change because, as my wife can tell you, I suck at change. I'm not good at change. I don't like change. And I was thinking about that a few minutes ago, and actually that probably makes sense because some of the things I'm talking about are big history kind of change. But yeah, Garrett rolls in here and then he starts telling me how to run my show, and that I want my DZ at. What does that mean? Change is a good one. Well, I was thinking about change like historically. I look back on my life and I see lots of changes, most of which have not necessarily been bad changes for me. I mean, I guess I handle some of those better. When it's personal change, I don't handle that very well. For example, when when they moved us around from office to office when I was still working, I didn't handle that well. One of the changes I understood, one of the changes I didn't ever get used to. Hi, buddy. Come here, hop back up here. Change is good when you're a baby. That's a good one, Dean, because that's true. And you change your underwear, socks, your toothbrush. You do? Oh, okay. I guess you're supposed to change your toothbrush. I guess underwear and socks. I guess you ought to change that too. Hey, bud. You ready to come back? You want to come back over here and say hi again? Maybe you be in a better mood this time? Huh? You want to come up here? You guys can't see. If he was just a little bit higher, you can see he's got his head over my arm here. He's kind of being nice. I'll hold you? No? Okay. No holding right now. Okay, now I got to know what a Coinstar machine is. What's that, Carol? Change is good when you have free use of a Coinstar machine. Is that the machines that take your change and count it and pay you off for change, or give you paper money or whatever they do, or credit or something? See, I'm one of those guys that spends my change because I always try to give exact change if I'm. Okay, John, we'll be here. Oh, okay. Well, God guessed that right then. Good for me. I know those things make a lot of noise when they're working, which I think they're very cool. Don't get me wrong. When I was young and running paper routes, I had to count all my change and all that stuff. It would have been nice kind of to have some kind of a machine. That kind of change I can probably I work with better. We did a test at my last workplace, and there were two of us. one who was a little bit older than me. He retired a few years before I did. He and I both always scored very poorly on that change test they give you, and I can't remember the name of it, but there is a test they give you, and somebody came up with, some work psychologist or psychiatrist or somebody. I don't know what they were. Anyway, it depending on how you score is how good or poor you are at dealing with change. And my scores were always really bad. Okay, Garrett says, "Oh man, you have all the change you need in one of those big empty water bottles. Fill it up with change." Yes, but I spend change. See, I'm one of those guys that grew up trying to make correct change all the time, which people I later learned, they don't like that because they're behind you. Carol, Brenda, you're behind. I don't. Are you hearing the echo? By the way, hang on just a minute. Let me close the door. I forgot to do that. Okay, I'm back. Sometimes when I don't, Brenda, she's online with me, she gets a really bad echo. Wait a minute. I've lost track here. You shortchanged God and you didn't receive that new Lexus you would have gotten after the service. That's a topic we can go into some night. Barefoot in the snow. I don't want to go down this road, Garrett, so don't. But we should talk about late night. We should talk about late night AM radio preachers sometime. Get your opinion on that, because we used to tune them in sometimes when we were at work. When I worked late shifts at night and or on the way home, and those guys were giving away all kinds of interesting things. I bet they're still out there too. Used to be one that's from Jamaica, New York. I can't remember their names anymore, but anyway, that's a whole nother subject. I can't go there. Ouch. What? And now he's wanting attention, Carol. That's probably your fault. He thinks because of you, he thinks he's special. Don't get me started on those guys if they're only talking about prosperity, believe in God, and you will be rich. Well, they gamble and give you lucky pieces for your shoe. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Anyway, there's lots of different kinds of changes, and some of them I think are good for people. And there's some changes I think I can deal with change if it actually seems to serve a purpose. If it doesn't make much sense, or at least if it doesn't make any sense to me, I struggle with it, I guess. I sent you a video on IG about how to use a coin. Okay, Dean, I will look that up in a moment. Darn you. Okay, segment change lane. That's not true, Garrett. I would gladly talk about that. And in fact, I'll just write that down and make that the next show. But I didn't come in here to talk about that tonight. I mean, I certainly will. And I wasn't the one signaling to make a lane change. You were. Just because you're dodging in and out of traffic. So anyway, let me pull up I got a little bit of a cheat sheet here. One of the things that made me think about this was, well, there's been several things, some of which were conversations with a Californian who shall remain nameless. But I got my notes messed up. Hang on just a minute. Well, I thought about all the things that have changed in my lifetime. And I was born in the late 50s, and well, I don't know about that, Garrett. See, I think change doesn't get me out of it might get me out of a rut, but it doesn't make me less depressed. Yeah, there you go. Tell him, Brenda. The change tends to make me very depressed at times. I'm glad you at least clarified that part. Oh yes, it does. Oh yes, it does. What? So you're gonna? Okay, no, we can talk about that. See, one of the things you keep going, Garrett. I'll continue. Yeah, but like some of the things that have changed in my lifetime that I'm not thrilled about were things like we don't people don't live. This probably ain't gonna sound right either, but you're busy getting frustrated. No, I'm not. I'm trying to think. If you were busy changing, you have no time to get depressed. Oh well, what if you don't want to? What if you resist changing? If you're busy changing, you have no time to get depressed. Hmm. Yeah, but we don't. Technically, you're right. If I initiate change to my own self, yes, that's a good thing. I can see that. Or if an individual tries to make that change, but those changes might not be good always. Depends on your train of thought there, and if you make good choices. And some people don't tend to make good choices, so I think some of those changes might not work out. But to continue to stay in a rut, yes, that I could see it on your own volition. Yes, I can see how that. I agree with you. That is depressing. And I've been there, done that. I think I'm probably there somewhat now. I'm trying to make changes and keep things going and pick myself back up off the ground. So yeah. Well, that's your opinion, Miss Pruitt. I don't know if I totally agree with that or not, but no, you're probably more right than not. And if we succeed well, we show the way for others. Lack of change affects others around us. It does. It does. Yeah, you can tell that, can't you, Carol? He comes in loaded for bear. He's been thinking about this. See, and I was thinking about other things like, you know, the fact that in my lifetime we went from. I used to know a man. I used to know someone who was, pushing 100 years old at the time I thought about this, and I thought that man has seen a lot of change in his life. He'd seen, men learn how to fly. He'd seen two world wars happen. The nuclear age had happened. I don't think that was a good change, personally. Flying had become a common thing. Uh, Certainly seen a lot of different genres of music come and go. And more and more of America got out of an urban or that kind of setting and got in more suburban and urban. Did I say that wrong? Rural. I meant rural setting, not urban setting. Okay, what did I? Oh, he did. Yes. And I'll be honest, some of that change makes me sad too, because it made people. I think it made a lot of people made them more dependent and less able to do things for themselves. I think there was a time when in my lifetime at least, when you had to be able to fend for yourself better, or maybe we expected to have to. Maybe that's the change. In that regard. But there's also other things that, my buddy in Wyoming and I've talked about raising kids and um, how we treat kids these days and how much I hate to use this word. It's actually one of my least favorite words, but so I shouldn't use it at all, should I? Let's say shelter kids. And they grow up with a whole different concept of how the world works and how life in general works. And, this is oversimplification probably, but, how many people know where they get their milk, for example. We saw a show, Brenda and I saw a show the other night where just milking a cow has become so sophisticated that it doesn't have any human interaction or very little. The cow automatically walks into a stall. The stall automatically detects the cow. It automatically positions the cow. It automatically washes her udders. It automatically hooks up the milking machine, and it automatically fills the machine. And then when it's done, it shoos her out the other side, and another one automatically walks in. When I grew up, I used to go to the barn with my grandparents and watch them sit on what they called a 3-leg milking stool, which was actually a 1-leg milking stool with a T-bar. It made one leg, and your legs and feet made the other 2 legs of the stool. And they sat there and they milked the cows in their barn hall, filled up their pail, poured it into a large milk can that you see now in antique shops and people use for umbrella holders. And when they were full, we rolled them down to the road, and the milk truck came by and picked them up and took them off. And usually they had a bucket of milk sitting out by the door, letting the cream rise and all that kind of stuff, or separate or whatever it did. And that's how they milked their cows. And that's how most farmers in that area did milk their cows. Then automatic machines came, and even those machines took a human interaction. A human had to be involved. Now it's not like that at all. It can be. I'm sure this is still on the high end scale, but it can be all completely automated and no people are even involved. I'm not even sure they have to give, cows shots anymore or anything like that and check them for disease. This milking machine system that they now have used, it completely it checks the milk for bacteria and disease, and if the cow's got a temperature or a fever it's amazing to me. And I just thought, wow, that's a huge change in a lifetime. That took dairy farmers, common people like my grandparents, and took them out of the dairy business, and it has evolved since then. Now, has it evolved for the better? Maybe. For the consumer, probably. Although, most milk producers would probably tell you they still don't make much money for their milk. But it's a huge change. My grandparents had to adjust to that change. They had to take up a different trade on the farm, so to speak. And so my granddad shifted over. He got rid of his dairy cattle and bought Angus and started raising beef cattle. And other things like that they did on the farm. But that was their farm life. But it was a big change. It was a big change for them because they went from one way of making a living or supplementing their living. He was also in construction, a carpenter, to, doing something entirely different. And that's a kind of change that in many ways I feel bad about. I hate that it has changed. But it's also one of those that probably in the long run was a better kind of change. Now, that's probably not exactly what Garrett has in mind, but it did affect their lives. They had to change or, move on to something else, and that's what they did. And, I guess that worked out in the long run. I've had to change several times. Probably the one change that I've made in my lifetime that probably went better than most was when I was laid off in 1993. And Brenda, you can comment on this. I'd like to hear your opinion. I was laid off in 93 and I changed careers and I went back to college and got 2 degrees in college. Now, I feel like I threw myself into that change. And maybe that's because, as Brenda pointed out, I was in charge. I was in control of that change. So, Garrett, feel free to speak up. That was a change that I had some input into. It was a decision I made. I'd like to say we made. She'd probably tell you it was more me than her, but she supported me in it. And I never could have made it without her. And that put me on a whole different career path. And then that career path came up with challenges and change and that I struggle with. But I did. If I think about it, I probably did in my previous career too, when we had management changes or, supervisor changes or company owner changes. Replay it, Garrett. It's making funny air noises. It's because you were running the air. Did you check, make sure Gabe wasn't down the garbage disposal or anything? So anyway, that's the kind of changes I think about as major changes in the way this country or the world ran. And, people had to adjust to that. People have had to adjust from the mentality of working a job. And I don't know how I feel about some of this. Factory workers or many people used to take a job and that job was a lifetime commitment for a lot of people, or at least they expected it to be. And then when they've had to change and either the company got sold, went out of business, were bought out by somebody else, different new management took over, they've had to make those changes and they've either had to adjust or move on. And I think we see that kind of struggle in a lot of things. I feel like I've seen religious change in this country, which might seem like a strange topic for me to discuss, but I have watched it. I mean, I grew up one way and then see things happen in different ways. I don't know. Maybe that's not. I have to think about that for a minute to clarify that probably better. But another change that some people accepted and some didn't in my lifetime, for example, was the moon landings. I had a conversation last week with my mother-in-law. I'll not mention any names. Thank you, Dean. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. I appreciate it. Hope you have a good day tomorrow. If you're working, smile a lot and wave. Hand out good burgers. Man, I totally lost that chain of thought. I've got to think about this one for a minute. Oh, moon landings. And she wasn't so sure she believed in the moon landings even today. And, I guess there was a lot of people that weren't sure they were ready to accept the fact that we were that advanced or technologically advanced that we were able to land on the moon. And that may not be the same kind of change, and it's not exactly what, Garrett was talking about, I think, but it's still change you have to deal with in your life. You either accept it or you don't. Handing out change. Good one, Dean. I like that. Think about what you're going to do with all that change. Just remember how you handle that change could make the difference on where you are tomorrow, as in county jail or, back at work. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. I hate to be wiping my nose in front of everybody, but she is 85. I'm not knocking that because of her age, Brenda. She is 85, but she wasn't 85 when men landed on the moon. And I'm just surprised. Oh, yeah, Garrett, she's from California. All right, Dean. He's on a roll now. Sorry, man, but they changed those burgers to all veggie burgers now. There's no real cow in any of these. Well, Carol might like that. Anyway, those are different kinds of changes that I think those are big changes that changed a lot of different people's lives and things that happen. Good night, Dean. Look out, skunks. Wait a minute. What's the skunks got to do with anything? Oh, had to chase a darn skunk out of the backyard so I can let the dogs. John. We'll have to tell a skunk story some Saturday. I've got a good one. Brenda could tell it better than I can, probably. So what kind of changes? Come on, Gary. You got 26 minutes. What kind of big changes have you experienced in your life that either have been gone well or have not gone well at all? I believe that my change to take the opportunity to go back to college was a good change. That doesn't mean I agree with every little thing that happened in my career, but I do believe it was a good change. I met a lot of good people. I got to know a lot of really good friends, made some good friends. I learned a lot. It was a great opportunity. I have a lot of baking soda and Dawn soap in stock. Oh, so this is a regular thing for you. You need to throw some peroxide in there with it, John. If you haven't done that, then mix that with it too, and that really helps get rid of the smell. Change is a test of character. I'm not sure what that says about my character. How would I think about that? I think I have to deal with change at some level, but inside I really struggle with it, and it comes out too often, I'm sure. But a lot of times, I do have to deal with it and move on, or continue to work with it. But internally, it just eats me up, or it can eat me up. But that's not the case with all change. I mean, there are changes I've had to make. Like I said, going back to college was a huge change that I really threw myself into. But there are changes that just don't make a lot of sense. That's the ones I struggle with. John worked for the federal government. He kind of knows what I'm talking about. You work for certain organizations and they make a lot of changes because that's the new blue plate special of the month, and then you can't, and it doesn't make any sense. And for someone who tries to be practical and look at things logically, that can drive you absolutely crazy. You used to go, see, I was going to save that story, Brenda, for Saturday. She used to go, I'll put that up there and make sure everybody sees that. Here's go skunk thumping. And that's a true story, and we'll have to discuss that further at a later date. that was an interesting thing, that skunk thumping. Let's see what Garrett's got. There's a lot that goes with change. We tend to put things in compartments, encouraging us working together, creating relationships to help each other. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't think. I also think that I think I can catch myself trying to help someone else deal with change when I myself don't deal with change very well. Does that make sense? Um, Maybe it doesn't, but that's kind of how I see it. I don't love change, but I do like the feeling of trying to change things that aren't right. I agree with you, Carol. That is kind of part of the point of this whole discussion is there are different kinds of changes, I guess, different things, and that's what I meant a minute ago by trying to get involved with helping people through change that doesn't seem to be going well or is causing them a great deal of strife or grief. That's Brenda, you're a firecracker. Oh, don't encourage her, Carol. I have to live with her. The guy driving the truck was the real firecracker, Carol. Brenda was along for the ride, literally. Like I said, come in Saturday. We'll talk about that Saturday a little bit. There's a whole story about that. Yeah, and then, but on your Carolyn, back to your thought there about changing things that aren't right. I think one of the things we struggle with. I mean, I'm saying we as in collectively, and for different reasons, or what we think is right may not be what someone else thinks is right. I've struggled a lot the last few years about political things and I'll have to be honest, probably religious things that get pushed and pressed that I don't think are right, but I'm quite sure those people did. And so then you got to wrestle with that, what's right and what's not. I think there are some basic rights, basic concepts, ideas that should be right or should make sense to be right. That's not making. I'm not talking. I'm not talking very well. Um, I thought maybe my wife had sent me a text to shut up. Embrace the change. But Carol, you may get my point though. I mean, I don't. I don't love change. I don't like change. Some change I really struggle to accept, and yet there are things I would like to change. There are like things I would like to see change. At first, it's like eating a cactus. You mean? You said a caucus, but I think you meant a cactus. That's it. I guess one way to look at it. I guess, although you got to get all those to make that. I guess to that point. Well, I figured it out. I guess at that point though, you gotta figure out a way to get past the spines in a cactus, or the thorns on the rose bush. I mean, most people think roses are beautiful flowers, but you got to get past the thorns to pick them, or to pass holder pears in the house. Hey, I made myself a Welsh mule tonight, just so you know, a little Welsh whiskey and some ginger ale. Okay, I lost my line of thought there. Oh, eating the cactus part. Yeah, and I guess that's where we have to, the old, I don't know who came up with this. I don't know where it came from. I've heard it in Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I've probably heard it discussed in youth groups or church groups, different people, but the old thorns and roses concept of when you're doing something, at the end of the event, you go around and ask people what their thorns and what their roses were, what they got out of it. And, that don't sound too bad either. Jim Beam Black. Yeah, actually, that would probably be pretty darn good. One of the things that didn't go well for you or you didn't like them versus one of the things you really did enjoy. And that's, I guess, a lot about change is learning to deal with the thorns to get to the roses, or hoping there are roses. I mean, that's because I think sometimes we deal with change. And one of the problems we have, I think one of the problems I have is seeing the roses. If it's not an obvious rose, then I struggle with figuring out how to get there or what it is that I'm trying to get to. Oh, I whine a lot more, so I think age does have something to do with that, Garrett. I'm sure it does. I whine a lot. That's Brenda. I may have whined all my life pretty much, but she's got to the Morlocks. That's the scary part. Well, I'm having a Pendrin. It says it's after 10 o'clock. I guess I can show that. A little bit of Welsh whiskey in my ginger ale. Okay, let's see what me pick up on what Garrett's putting down here. Yeah, I won't disagree there, Garrett. That's probably a really good point, because when you find yourself all alone, then if you don't have good and not just Sunday friends or sunshine friends, you need friends that one will tell you the truth when you need to hear it, and also understand why you're struggling. And that's and when you don't have that at all, then it makes it a lot harder. The struggle has to be, it's all personal. And then I think it has a habit of becoming more internalized. Oh, Nashville tied it up. Sorry. I'll get back to that after this is over. They really need to win one of these. Which is a good point, Garrett. I'll have to give you credit for that one. Oh, I'm admitting it too, Brenda. I mean, I know I do. I had a lot of changes in the last year, and I've whined a lot about most all of them. I mean, the last year and a half, 2 years now, going on 2. I can't walk. I can't ride my motorcycle. I can't do the things I wanted to do in retirement. And I whine about that a lot. And I don't think that's been a good change, but it's got something I'm learned to deal with. I have to think on that one, Garrett. Somehow I think I know where you're headed with that, but I'm not sure where I'd land on all of that. I do think there are different levels of friends and friendship. There's the guys, the people, the person, male or female, that you know and like and meet and have a beer with once in a while, or maybe meet and have dinner with your family or something like that. And then there's the friends that you really can get down in the dirt with and share your biggest problems. That's probably true also, Carol. I can't deny that. I think I do that. I mean, I think I put up my own fences to keep something out, trying to keep the change away as much as I to fight the change as opposed to trying to accept it and figure out a way to work with it. I do think that. Let's see what Mr. Garrett had in here. Okay. I think you had more to say. Okay, here we go. Some people pointed it out, and I saw how much Dad did with others. And I was like, oh man, my dad sucked with doing that. Now I feel upset. I didn't before. Well, that's a good point. I mean, that happens. What you have to do is figure out why you were satisfied with it before, and then why somebody pointing it out to you makes a difference. And you got to figure out if that person pointing it out really had your best interest in mind. I don't think that's always the case. Well, there you go. I mean, I think it's good that you thought about it, and it may or may not change how you interact with Gabe growing up. Maybe not. Um, but I mean, I've had to rethink a lot of that kind of thing with my dad, and I'll admit sometimes I wasn't happy with how I used to. I think I used to hold it against my brother. I grew up. My dad wasn't able to do a lot of things when I was growing up due to health issues, and partly because of that, and partly because I wanted things. Um, he seemed to spend a lot more time with my brother because my brother was more into sports, the stick and ball kind of sports than I was. I was the kid that wanted to go fishing and go hunting, and my dad didn't really do that so much. We did a little, but he liked to play baseball. My dad played semi-pro baseball, and he played softball till the day he couldn't do it anymore, and volleyball and that kind of stuff. So it was a natural fit when my brother came along, and he was much more of an athlete, structured athlete than I was. Like I said, I wanted to be out in the woods doing things. He wanted to be on the ball field. And so they spent a lot of time together. And he didn't have to go to work. He wasn't working in high school and stuff like I was. I worked all through high school. I had jobs after school, after hours. And my brother never had to do that at all. I was good with my dad because he didn't need to be this way or that. And there are so many people in the world who can take up the slack. Well, yeah, I'm way behind you here, buddy. You're outrunning me. Oh, I'm not sure what didn't do. Oh, I missed something there. Well, circumstances are one of the things that makes. And there's a saying for this too, but I can't think of it right at the moment. But most of us don't know the circumstances behind what's going on in this family and what's going on in this one. Some of us don't even know what's going on within our own. Um, But I caught myself. I feel like I blew when it comes to raising kids and the changes I th- probably thought I was trying to do may or may not have been the best choices and decisions. Um, some of the things that I feel like I did were that I got from my parents, I think worked. Probably some didn't, but then again, maybe I didn't actually take the right message. Uh, and I had a whole nother thought there, and I talked myself right through it. Oh, I spent a lot of my time working and I grew up with the mindset that that was my job. I was supposed to work. I was still in the tail. I'm not saying this is entirely changed, but still the time when most men worked, husbands worked, wives took care of the kids, kind of thing. And I feel like I spent way too much of my time working when my kids were at a very young age. When now I wish I had spent more time with them and had done more things, and I didn't realize what I was missing until it was sort of too late, not entirely too late. And maybe I spent time trying to make that up to them later. I'm not sure, but uh, I worked a lot back then, and I worked such odd shifts that usually when the kids and Brenda were at home, I was at work. So that kind of stuff. Hey, Francisco, good to see you, buddy. Everybody, Mike, are you still here? I don't know if guys, by all means, feel free to step in. Anyway, Carol's, I think, has a really good point. When we do see things, it can help us make us better parents, I think. Why are they showing up over here before over there? That's confused me. We tend to have higher expectations of how people should be. Yeah, I think that's true, Garrett. I think some of us try not to be that way, but I think we are by nature. And I think if we're not careful, that's what happens first if we don't take the time to think about something. Um, and I'm probably as bad as I'm sure I'm as bad as anybody, if not worse, about that. But I try not to be. I try to, even if my initial reaction to someone or something is that way, I do try to think it through and think about it and think about why I shouldn't be that way. But I also try not to immediately judge a book by its cover. I mean, I feel like I've done that in my lifetime, and I feel like I've tried to work through that and not be that way. Um, I don't. I feel like I'm very open with open, not the right word. Um, I try to be very open minded with people's thoughts, their ideas, religion, um, sexual orientation, um, skin color, whatever you want to call it. And while sometimes I'm sure I struggle with that, I try. That's one of the things I've tried to do most of my life is get better at that, and not again, like I said, not just judge a book by its cover. I'm not sure I missed something there, Garrett. Then what? What do you mean by that? Expound. I don't think more expectation is bad all the time. I mean, I think it is. I think we probably should try to expect more out of ourselves and others. But you also have to understand that sometimes there's more to that than sometimes there may be legitimate reasons why we fall short, and we can't just dwell on just that. Now there are some reasons I think that people fall short that is very discouraging, or um, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, just disappointing. But that's not always something that can be fixed. And maybe that's because somebody's not trying. Mike's got something to say. I bet it has, Mike. I'd like to talk to. I'd like to talk about that someday. And get on the phone and just chat. I'd like to hear how that's been and how that's gone for you. Uh, I've not done that exactly. I've worked with some youth and from different groups, but then again, I don't know exactly where you work, what part of the inner city, what city you're in, but so it might be different here. I mean, even though I live in a large town or on the edge of a large town, there's still a lot of rural inclinations with people in this part of the country. So there's still some tie to the land, if you will, or their history, heritage. So maybe that I feel sure that that's different. But I've also worked with. I've had some interesting work. I've worked with some interesting volunteers at different times, different groups from different schools and universities, which I really enjoyed, to be honest. Now, that's a good point, too, Carol. I think an expectation a main goal can be pretty high if you're willing to work the small steps it often takes to get there. If you expect to reach that goal immediately or with a couple of giant steps, if you will, to get to that main goal, failure is going to happen probably more often than not, and that's not going to be good for anybody, but mostly to the person you're supposedly trying to help or assist to reach that goal, or yourself. I mean, I I feel like we can all be guilty of that sometimes. We get discouraged and stop along the way. I think I do that sometimes. I have a lot of auspicious goals that I don't always get to. And sometimes that means I don't, continue to put out the effort. Well, I'm sure that's happened too, Mike. And I can see how that would do both of those things, or all three or four of the things you mentioned there. And let's see what Carol had to say. Yeah, that's a bad combination there too. You got to have humility. People have to have some humility along the way. If you don't, then no, it hasn't worked out yet too. And we've tried to do that in many steps, haven't we, Teddy? He just gave me a look. I dealt with that a lot. Different concept, maybe different level, but I dealt with that quite a bit with people that I worked with, and as in people that we worked, not worked with in the sense of the same building, but that we dealt with and tried to work out problems with, because there are. I'm trying to think how to say this. We worked with a lot of people who were at much lower income levels than some of the people. Some of the people I worked with out in the field, were, for lack of a better word, quite uppity, and they had one vision in mind of what things should be. And yet, right over here, we had people who had much lower educations, far lower income levels, had a whole different concept of how they wanted to live and interact with the resources or whatever. And some people didn't deal with that very well. Yeah, I think you're probably right there too, Garrett. I mean, I think some people see it that way. I agree there, Mike. See you, Garrett. Have a good phone meeting, or whatever kind of meeting it is. Digital. We're not going to be around much longer. I promised I wouldn't stay up all night. And honestly, I wish I could stay longer, because it's this is an important topic. I think I may not be doing much of a good job of moderating it or talking about it, but it is a very good. It's an important topic that we don't. It's an important topic. It goes back to some other things I've said. We don't do well in this country, and that's hunker. We don't hunker and talk to people. We don't talk to each other and work out problems and try to see different perspectives. And I think part of that's because it is really hard for some people to view others' perspectives if it's too far removed. I gotta read this. And you know what, Mike? I think that's a great thing. And I'm glad that we all need that. We all need something that puts that smile back on our face. And if it's a glass of bourbon and a good cigar, then so be it. I agree 100% there. Yeah, Carol, I agree with that too. And I don't want to mean to sit here and sound like an echo chamber, but I think we went, from when I was growing up, kids who didn't achieve well in sports, let's say, as an example, got little or no attention at all, to the point now where we shower so much attention on kids to some level that they expect that the rest of their life, whether they're achieving and actually doing something or not. And I guess that's the old argument about the participation trophy. Just participating shouldn't always get you a trophy. It should be recognized that you're participating, you're trying. I agree with that, but I think there is a level that there's got to be a way that you are able to push kids in a let go of my shirt. He's got something he wants to say. I'll have to figure out what it is. I'll encourage them and help them, mentor them to achieve higher levels of learning, of physical ability, maybe, or just maybe to learn to read without making them feel bad or pushing them to a point where the pressure's too great. And you guys, Carol, Mike, you've worked with younger kids more, and Yeah. You know, I'll go back to Andy Griffith. You know, Andy Griffith. There was Andy Griffith show did a special one time about loser. Opie was really mad because he lost. Ouch! Stop. You know, because he lost a race and he didn't get us back then. He didn't get a participation trophy, and he was really mad about it because he didn't win. And you know, the moral of the story was you got to learn to be a good loser. Now you don't always have to be satisfied you lost, but I think there is a lot to say about someone who can be a good loser. You can go home, beat on the wall, or whatever you need to do to get out your frustrations, but there's a way to show it at the time and a way not to act. And I'm afraid that some people who had that handed to them for so long when they're younger expect that through life. I've worked with a few of those too, and it's not always, you know, they don't deal with that kind of loss well. They really do expect more, and they don't understand why something is painful when they lose or when it doesn't go their way. Rather than trying to work through that, they tend to throw a fit and then, as we say in the hill country, you know, show their arse. We don't say it that way, but I think that's a really good point, Mike. I appreciate that. I do think that makes me think about all kinds of other things, and that's good. That's if we don't do anything else here, maybe it'll get us to thinking about other concepts or other ways we haven't looked at it. I worry sometimes, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. And this doesn't, while this may seem like an inner city thing, I don't believe it is. I think it happens just as much here as it does anywhere else. But I also worry about um, that whole reasoning causing a lot of the violence that we have in our society today because kids, young adults don't know how to handle that loss and pain situation. Interesting, Mike. I do. I hope you and I have a chance to sit down and talk from time sometime. I'm gonna sign off. Good night to everyone. Have a wonderful Friday and a week and a weekend. You mean a good weekend, I guess, or a wonderful weekend. That's probably a big old hint that I should start winding down. Not Brenda. Oh, I'm stopped up, guys. I apologize. Well, now she's gone. I can stay as long as I want to. But I know that Carol probably has to go to work tomorrow. Mike has to go to work tomorrow. We're not all retired. Plus, I'm missing my hockey game. So eventually I'll probably have to go. Guys, I appreciate everybody coming in tonight. Uh, thank you, Brenda. Uh, it's been a good conversation. I would like to continue with some of this kind of thought. This is pretty much why I tried to start this evening chat. I wanted us to talk about some of the harder things in life, not necessarily just the roses and Disney and that kind of stuff. I love Disney as much as anybody, and I love talking about it. And sometimes I promise you, there was a time when most people thought that's all I thought about, and I still do. But I wanted to start talking about. I wanted to have an opportunity with folks to talk about stuff that's a little harder and takes a little more deep thought and trying to help us all learn a little bit more about hunkering. And I keep saying that, and I'll have to explain that again. Hey, Dave, welcome in. I think we will too, Mike, and I really hope we do. I hope you let me know sometime when you've got time, and I'm just about always time. I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. Yeah, and in person, I hope that does happen, and I hope it happens in the not too distant future. I'll get down that way someday. And John, there's a lot of people in this group right here that I'd like to meet. I'd like to meet Carol and John and Dave. John and I have some old times to talk about too. And Mike, I would love to have longer, more in-depth conversations with you about a few things, actually. Oh, and don't forget to hit the like button, my wife said, or subscribe if you haven't already, but most of you guys probably are. Oh, thank you, Carol. Thank you very much. Let me make sure she sees that. If she's not, I'll make her go back and watch it. Come on, Carol, give me a break. I'm trying here. I'm trying. Oh, mercy. Well, guys, I am getting stopped up. I'm getting more. This is what happens to me at night. I start getting stopped up later. Later, it gets more congested, I seem to get. So, I think I will call it a night. I hate to shorten it up. I would like to continue on. Like I said, I know people have to go to work. Thank you, Dave. You're my kind of guy, buddy. Sorry you got here right about time we're leaving. But again, I thank everyone for being here. Mike, Carol, John, Garrett, I appreciate your input. It means a lot to me, and I think it helps the conversation and carry the point. And, I'll probably be here. I'm going to be here every Thursday night or every other Thursday night, I think. We'll see how it goes. It depends. Tonight I wasn't feeling that great, and I almost didn't come in after all, even though I'd planned it. And then I thought, no, I'm going to, and I got feeling better. So I'm glad I did. Hitting the pillow, didn't sleep well all weekend. Oh yeah. Good night, John. See you Saturday morning. I hope. Talk to you soon. And hope Holly's doing good. And I'd say hi to your dad if you talk to him. I agree, Mike. Thank you, Carol. I'll tell Teddy. Oh, he left. He got mad and left. Oh, there he is. You leaving? You want to say bye to Carol? Come here. Come up here real quick. Come on. Come here. Oh. Yeah, come here. Say good night. Say go curl up with a warm cat, everybody. And have a good evening. Oh, is that opening this weekend? I didn't even realize that, Mike. Is that is it a pass holder thing? Yeah, I want to hear all about it. I'm really curious. It better be good because they took out the Universe of Energy, which actually was one of my favorite Disney things. Say bye, Carol. Good night. Why don't you look at the camera anymore, huh? Hop down. Ugh. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming in and appreciate your input. See you guys. Pass holder preview. Cool. Well, I can't wait to hear about that. Good night. See you guys again soon. See some of you Saturday morning. We're going to talk about bees and wasps Saturday morning, so be there. It should be fun.